Now that all competitors have been seating, writing is allowed. As mentioned, the competitors have been briefed on the competition and realized that their general discussion should be directed towards each other rather than to the audience. In my role as moderator, I will not attempt to control or direct this discussion. Remember, the discussion is meant to resemble a committee meeting with the end goal of determining possible solutions to the question at hand. This is not a panel discussion with point, counterpoint, and an active moderator. As such, I will not intervene unless or until disparaging or inappropriate remarks are made. With that in mind, the burden is on the competitors to moderate themselves and conduct themselves in a cooperative and congenial manner. The question for this round is question number 3. What is sustainable agriculture, and how can Farm Bureau help farmers and ranchers access market-based solutions that advance sustainability goals without restricting their ability to stock America's pantries, help feed a growing population, and maintain farm profitability? The competitors for this round are Kat Hall, Newt Gilman, Andy Paul, and Michael Howard. We will begin this discussion with 30-second opening statements from each competitor. Following the open statements will be 25 minutes of open discussion, followed by 1 minute of quiet time for the competitors to prepare their 1-minute closing statements. Official time is kept by the timekeeper. Again, she'll hold up a 5-minute yellow card and a red card to end discussion. Competitors, in voluntary order, make your 30-second opening statements. Please stand and direct your opening statements to the audience. The timer will indicate when your 30 seconds have elapsed by holding up a red card. You may begin.
American Farm Bureau President Zippy Duvall stated that sustainability is at the heart of what we do, and we aren't finished yet. Farmers and ranchers across our state are constantly seeking ways to improve the land that they love through sustainable practices. And I believe that Farm Bureau can help them achieve those goals through information, technology, and access to the community that they need to be successful. AFB Women's Committee Chair Isabella Chisholm said that agriculture is all about caring. And so I'm excited for our conversation about the land we care about today.
Farming as a practice sustains crops, sustains livestock, and in turn sustains human life. So I think it's safe to say that as an industry, agriculture is a sustainable practice. However, I'm looking forward to have a conversation with my colleagues today about how we can build on the work of our past generations to continue to make our industry sustainable for the future.
I also quote Zippy Duvall. I read that he said that no practice is sustainable unless it's also profitable. But with U.S. ag emissions holding steady at 10% of our nation's total, while our inputs are going down and our productivity is going up, it's clear that farmers are sustainable stewards of the land. And I look forward to discussing how Farm Bureau can help them continue that great story. And I look forward to the time with the panel.
Yes, I agree with all of you. Sustainability is all about longevity over time. 130,000 U.S. farms already use renewable resources. And like you said, only 10% of them are greenhouse gases come from the agriculture industry. It would actually take 100 million more farms 30 years ago to meet today's production standards in agriculture. I look forward to talking to you guys about regenerative agriculture, cover crops, and no-till, to name a few. Yeah, and I just look forward to this discussion.
You have heard the opening statements. The competitors, we now proceed with the discussion. Competitors, please direct your discussion to your fellow panel members.
You know, I think it's a great place to be here to talk about sustainability. This is a conversation in agriculture that we have been having for a really long time. We're constantly talking about sustainability. And when I think about the first part of that question that we're tasked to answer is, what is sustainability? You know, what does that look like? We can sit here and talk about it, but practically, what does that look like? The USDA definition of sustainability is farming in such a way to protect the environment, aid and expand our natural resources, and make the best use of non-renewable resources. And listening to our opening statements, it seems like that's the direction that we're headed. And I think that serves as a good guideline parameter for our discussion today. So when we talk about sustainability, it's not something that's protecting the environment, aiding and expanding natural resources, or making the best use of our non-renewable resources. then it doesn't kind of qualify as sustainability. And when I think about sustainability, I think about the fact that we have to promote agriculture for generations to come. And when we think about sustaining the farm, one piece that I think about is our labor. The fact that we cannot continue to farm without labor. And in fact, recently, there was a increase in the average earner workers rate, which came out for our H2A program. And this average earner workers rate was going to increase H2A labor costs by 10% at the minimum across the board. And in fact, some states have seen an increase of about 30% in their H2A costs. We can't continue to farm, we can't be sustainable. And we think about market-based solutions and we think about stocking pantries, we can't do those without labor. So I think when we talk about sustainability, too, keeping labor at the forefront of our mind is also important. Michael, I'd love to hear your thoughts on how labor can access sustainability.
Certainly, I think since the 1930s and since the mechanization of agriculture, we have seen a large shift away from labor on the farm, and farming has continually needed less and less people. But the fact of the matter is we will never get to a point where we can completely automate farming. We're still going to need workers. So I think working with farmers, as we talk about sustainability, I heard you bring up in your opening statement that, we can be sustainable, but we also have to be financially sustainable. So I think when we talk about these things, we have to talk about them in tandem because, the fact of the matter is sustainability sometimes in terms of environmental sustainability can cost farmers. And so as we think about labor wages and as we think about taking care of the environment, we have to continually think about how we can keep our financial bottom line in line while still promoting future generations of our land and of the earth, and future generations of labor. And as I think about that, I think about what can Farm Bureau do to promote that. As I think about that, I think about advocate. Farm Bureau's kind of main wheelhouse. We know they're awesome at public policy and advocating for us farmers in the public sector. And I think continuing to advocate that our workers are taken care of, but at the same time that our farms have to be profitable, and establishing a relationship with our legislators is a wonderful opportunity to kind of address that issue that is going to has and continue to be a pertinent issue. But I think as we continue to talk about sustainability, we're going to continue to see technological revolutions that are going to reduce our cost of labor. And I think those are also going to be more sustainable technological advancements. And so I'd just like to hear your thoughts, Newt, about how Farm Bureau can advocate for technological advancements that are also sustainable.
Well, I appreciate you bringing me into the conversation, Michael, and I was listening to both of y'all. I like where you're going with labor because that does go back to the quote that I found from President Duvall about we have to have that balance between sustainability and profitability. To bring it back to the heart of the question, which where you're going back, Michael, I think we all know sustainable agriculture generally brings up like environmental questions in people's minds. And I think that's where the heart of this question is going. First off, Farm Bureau already partners with the University of Georgia to fund ag research. And I think one of the things that we could do and utilize more without really reinventing the wheel is take the things that we are learning from that research we're funding and have Farm Bureau representatives come to our district meetings or our local meetings, or partner with the Georgia Young Farmers Association and other producer groups to help disseminate these new things that we're learning and educate the farmers on how to put that into practice. Another way that we could go about this, Andy, you talked about access to technology. Michael, you're talking about technology. We have a great program as a member benefit through Farm Bureau with Savings Plus, which gives you discounts and savings on everything from hotel stays to buying a John Deere tractor. And I think Farm Bureau could continue, whoever's in charge of member benefits, they could continue to explore how we could expand that program to defray the cost of those new pieces of technology that can increase our efficiency and decrease our inputs, because it's all expensive and you have to keep up with the trends. You have to keep up with the changes in technology to remain relevant and to remain profitable, but at least jumping in at the beginning, it's a little bit pricey. And I think Farm Bureau could take an active and direct role in enabling our producers to buy into that technology earlier through the programs that we already have in place. And now I'd like to hear kind of how you can weave your points into
Yeah, so I think a lot of people, when they hear sustainability and think about these practices, they're picturing like the wind farms and the solar panels, and they just think money, this is gonna be so expensive. We can't afford to do this on our farm, so they kind of shut the whole idea away. But they need to be educated on a lot of the practices that a lot of farmers are already using in Georgia, especially regenerative agriculture. It's talking about protecting your soil over time, same with cover crops and no-till. It's focusing on keeping things in the soil to protect it, having a protective layer. Those kind of things are going to save you money over time. They're going to increase your crop yield. You're going to make more money, and they're honestly not as expensive as like solar panels or all the other fancy technology everyone's always thinking about when they just picture sustainability.
I think you bring up you go ahead and I'll think back.
Okay, sorry. Yeah, you bring up a good point, but when I was doing some research on this, apparently 2/3 of farmers already utilize cover crops, and I think let's see my statistic here, 90% are using irrigation and water management practices on their farm. So the key is now, how do we tell that story better, and also how do we educate the last third, the last 10% to get them to buy in? There's already a lot of programs that are, implemented by the U.S. Department of Agriculture that actually help defray the cost of those practices, like cost share programs through the Natural Resources Conservation Service. FSA has a couple of conservation programs. The key is that FSA and the RCS don't have the funds or the ability to put on meetings independently that will draw the numbers that they would need to educate enough producers, because to bring farmers out, you've got to feed them. And we don't have, as an MSA employee, we don't have the budget to buy food. We're actually not allowed to do all of that. But if Farm Bureau partnered with other producer organizations and invited an NRCS or an FSA employee from a local office to just tell the producers about these cost share programs that in some cases you make money off of the program by implementing new irrigation techniques or having a cover crop or putting in cross fencing or anything that manages whatever the conservation concern is. And I just think a lot of producers still are unaware of those programs and the financial benefits they have, as well as the long-term sustainability benefits as well. Sorry.
No, you're good. Yeah, and I think when this question talks about market-based solution, our farmers and ranchers are practical. And so the more that we can provide examples as we talk about, either be through legislation and working with the government or through videos, communications, those type of things, what are practical examples that we can apply? And American Farm Bureau has recently done a whole entire video series on sustainability, where they're going around and they're interviewing farmers about their sustainable practices. And to me, that is easy access. It supports market-based solutions because farmers trust farmers. And I think that's a fact of the matter. They're trusting other farmers. One of those videos was a dairy farm out in New Mexico, where they talked about how everything on the dairy farm is sustainable. And in fact, the owner of that dairy farm said that if you ask a farmer what they're doing to be sustainable, they would probably say nothing special because it's so ingrained in the work that they do. Examples that they use were water for sustainability purposes. And in fact, the water that they use is recycled about 4 or 5 times throughout. It's first used to cool their milk, and then it's used to wash out their barns and their equipment, and then it's used to spray on their fields. And so they're getting multiple uses out of this resource. And bringing that back to Georgia, right? New Mexico is a great state, don't get me wrong, but I love what Georgia Farm Bureau can do and the farmers that are already here. I think about my friend Brett Davis at the Miller County Cotton Gin. If you haven't had a chance to meet Brett yet, he is one of the nicest people that you'll ever meet and is passionate about agriculture. And when you think about cotton gin, you may not think picture of sustainability and what they're doing. But what Brett is doing at the Miller County Cotton Gin is that picture. The cotton moat, which is immature cotton, that is used to go towards short-term cotton products, including diapers, stuffing for different pieces. Even the plastic that they have on their bales as they come in is then shipped overseas to China, and they specifically use those for bags in grocery stores. So as we think about communicating, I would have never thought the cotton gin would be the picture of sustainability and all the excess that they do. I mean, the cotton seed can go towards cattle and dairy feed, the twigs, the branches, what some would consider trash is another man's profit and a treasure. And so Brett is able to use what is left over to continue to support not only his own operation, but the cotton farmers that come in to the Miller County Cotton Gin. And so if you think about sharing, educating sustainable practices, one thing I think is a video series by Farm Bureau, helping to educate our farmers, our ranchers, and our producers about what people in the state are doing. Because like I said, farmers trust farmers. And so the more that we can connect them, I think it's beneficial. And Michael, you got something.
Certainly, and I watched that same video series and just watching just how resourceful farmers really can be. And I think we all know that. But just to see that highlighted is wonderful for other farmers to see, but it's also wonderful for the public to see that. And I think that's kind of part of this is that oftentimes, unfortunately, agriculture and farming gets the brunt of the problem in terms of gets the kind of the scapegoat of sustainability problem. And I think as we continue, Farm Bureau needs to continue their good work of showing that just how resourceful farmers are, just how sustainable they're making their practices. So we can market our goods in that same way. Coming back to marketing, I think about our neighbors down in the south of us in Florida. Florida Farm Bureau actually has a program called This Farm Cares. And it's based on water management practices that are sustainable. And there are actually a list of best management practices that are put out by the Florida Department of Agriculture. And if you kind of meet these levels, or if you kind of meet these practices and show that you're using these practices to farm, you're able to put a sign outside your farm and say This Farm Cares. And it's a wonderful program to show that agriculture and the agriculture industry and farmers themselves do care and that they are being sustainable. So I kind of want to know y'all's thoughts about, how could we maybe do something like that in Georgia? I think about our Georgia Grow program has been outstanding from a marketing perspective. So how could we, not necessarily stamp our goods as organic? How can non-organic farmers still market their goods as being sustainable, and that we use a certain number of practices that are sustainable, showing that to the public, and how could Farm Bureau possibly play a role in that?
Yes, Michael, I want to hop in really quickly on that one because I'm really excited about this initiative by the USDA called Climate Smart Commodities. Climate Smart Commodities are a program through the USDA where grants are awarded, and there's one right here in Georgia. It's a partnership between the Georgia Alabama Land Trust and the University of Georgia Cooperative Extension and several other partners as well. And what they're studying is chestnuts, which seems kind of random, right? But they've been awarded $5 million to study climate smart chestnuts. And so when we think about that, what they're doing is they are receiving that grant to offset all of those initial costs, like we talked about with technology, to make sure that they can get that operation up and running. They're using those chestnuts for carbon sequestration, right? But the really cool thing that those farmers are able to do is they're able to market those and send them to stores as climate smart chestnuts. Do they taste different? No. Do they look different? No. Do they cost more? Yes. And does the farmer get more out of it? Yes. And so I think, as you talk about just a practice that a lot of our farmers could probably end up doing, and even if Georgia Farm Bureau can mimic that partnership with Florida Farm Bureau and get a Georgia Climate Protector stamp on some commodities that we're producing, I think it would be really beneficial because it's happening here. And I think also with Farm Bureau, we need to let people know about that. That's $5 million that a grant can be filled out, but put that, but offset the initial costs. And now local farmers are making a market-based solution. They have farm profitability because of the work that USDA is doing, and I think Farm Bureau can hop in on that. I believe I cut you off, so I apologize for that, but excited to hear what you got.
Well, I was actually going to tie in, I guess now a little bit to what you were just saying, and Michael as well. Michael, This Farm Cares initiative of Florida, that's very interesting. I actually hadn't come across that when I was doing research, but I already see how that can easily be tied in with the passport program that we're already doing. And as we've all said multiple times, if you ask a farmer what are they doing to be sustainable, the stuff they do every day is not even going to come to mind because it doesn't seem special to them, but they could utilize something like a climate smart label or something like that on their products. They're already in the good graces of the public by inviting them on their farm and doing marketing more locally. So they could really use a label like that without having to change a ton of what they're already doing. And it really just, instead of changing the practices of the farm, It's empowering that producer to tell their story
Yes.
in a new and creative way.
Yeah.
So I really like that, Michael. That's an awesome idea.
Yeah, I was about to say the same thing, that like they're really good, Farm Bureau is really good at marketing and telling farmers stories for them. Because a lot of times farmers don't have the opportunities to leave their farm, to go to legislation a lot, as much as Farm Bureau does to advocate for them. I really like this video series you guys were talking about as well. In this same series, they were really highlighting a lot of the creative, innovative ways that people were being sustainable. They mentioned feeding their cottonseed leftovers to their cows for protein, using the leftover peanut shells as bedding for some of their animals. Just creative ways you would have never thought of, but because Farm Bureau is able to market these, more farmers are seeing that. Farm Bureau is such a reputable source that people go to for information, that when they see these kind of videos and stuff, they're more likely to follow the bandwagon and jump on that train. Hey, that's a really cool idea. I could do that. There were others that were just like recycling tires for mulch. That's more popular now, but I'm sure 20 years ago, nobody had heard of that. So it's just really cool to see how they're marketing it in that way, and telling their story, like you said, because that's probably the most important part, other than changing their ways, is just marketing what they're already doing well, so others can do it too.
Right.
Yeah, I speak to a good point where, sorry guys, I'll call you, Michael. I also apologize for my persistent call. It's a great opportunity for them to be experienced. I think one thing we've all kind of pointed to is sustainability and increased efficiency go hand in hand. And there are some things, some innovations that have been around for a while, like GMO crops, precision ag technologies that have been around, and we're still working to find ways to help producers get access to those. And then also tell, again, as we've already hit on, tell our story about how those technologies that maybe the public is somewhat suspicious of actually plays directly into the sustainability goals that our culture is moving towards. And another way that I think that Farm Bureau could help our producers take advantage of that, they have, well, there's one they're currently doing, it's called the Ag Data Transparency Seal of Approval. One of the problems we have with a couple of things that are out there, one, a lot of the precision ag technologies and all of the data that goes into those systems, a lot of farmers still have a little bit of distrust as far as where is that data going and how is it being used, who owns it. And Farm Bureau for a while now has been doing the Ag Data Transparency Seal of Approval, where they actually analyze the contracts and agreements by all these different precision ag providers, and basically help the farmers figure out, if you work with this company, they own your data. If you work with this company, then you own your data, you can transfer it to another system. They've got the Ag Data Coalition, which actually provides an independent server for farmers to store their own data safely and transfer between systems. And they've partnered with several ag data or precision ag technology companies like John Deere, CNH, to carry out that initiative, who have agreed to let farmers carry their data around. I think a new way we could expand a program similar to that, we've talked about carbon sequestration, right? All these companies that are now working in the carbon credit markets, that's kind of, new frontier for everybody. We don't really understand how that works, how that's regulated. So I think Farm Bureau could really take the Ag Data Seal of Approval and the Ag Data Coalition idea they're already doing, and really mimic that exact same program for the carbon credit markets to help farmers make sense of that and navigate that space as that's kind of coming onto the stage. And I'd kind of like to hear how y'all, what y'all opinions on that are, and what other ideas you have.
Yes, certainly, dude. I think that's awesome. I think the more transparency that farmers can get, the more that can be translated to consumers. And I think that's the heart of our market, is ensuring that our consumers are aware of what we're doing, that what we're doing is safe, and tie it all back, that what we're doing is sustainable. But I think, including your point, I know, Catherine, you're an ag educator, and I know you brought up UGA earlier, and I just went to UGA 1 year ago, and I'll tell you, when I went there, I was kind of blown away, because you're surrounded by the experts in the cotton industry, the experts in the peanut industry, and luckily with the Moral Land Grant Act, we have a university here in Georgia that does research, and I think as you talked about more and more research, if you go to every county in Georgia, they're going to have 2 specific offices: Farm Bureau office and an extension office. And it's not to say that there's not already casual relationships, but I think as we talk about sustainability, we talk about more and more technological innovations. I think, Farm Bureau can continue to foster a partnership, at the local level, a very personal partnership, between our ag agents and our Farm Bureau offices. And again, that's not to say that's not already a thing, but a coordinated effort to ensure that the ag agents who are doing their work, their job is to communicate to farmers, have a space to communicate the new research. You know, I saw a professor at the University of Florida talking about artificial intelligence, kind of merged with precision ag. As precision ag continues to get much smart. I know that AI can sometimes be scary, but it talked about an herbicide sprayer on the back of a tractor, and instead of just spraying a field, the AI technology was able to see when there was a weed and instead just spray that individual weed. And that's just, and it amounted to about a 70 to 80% reduction in herbicide use, which, as we've all talked about, helps the farmers' bottom line. And I think that's the key to sustainability. It's helping those sustaining our bottom line and sustaining our environment. So as we talk about more and more of these technological innovations, and they just continue to come, we know that we have universities that are on the curve, that are on the brink of research. I think we need to make sure that Farm Bureau is an open place for our ag agents and even for professors to come out and share with farmers, so that that research is not just sitting up in a, you know, in the library, that it's coming into practice as soon as it can. And I think we can make Farm Bureau the town hall of sustainability. I think we can increase our membership, which is always what we want to do, and bring more value to our organization.
Yeah, absolutely. And as we think about what's our action plan, right? And we've had really good discussion. What can Farm Bureau do to implement some of these items that we have discussed today? We talked about, seal, data transparency. We talked about communications and marketing for generative ag. Another resource I believe that we can use, and continuing on with this seal, this almost like a Farm Bureau approved or a Farm Bureau stamp of approval for sustainable practices, is our buyer's guide online. Now, if you go to the Farm Bureau website, there's a buyer's guide where there are so many different options to purchase, whether it be equipment, machinery, crops, and just connection place. As we think about these seals and these stamps, I think an easy action plan that we could start potentially in the next few weeks that would maintain farm profitability, because we could allow our farmers, like we talked about with climate smart commodities, charge a premium on some of their products, is a sustainable seal. A sustainable seal on the Farm Bureau buyer's guide. So as you're going through and you're searching for ag technologies, and as you think about that John Deere See and Spray technology that is available, when ag pros kind of sell those, boom, there's a sustainable seal on that. And then access, when people are wanting to learn about sustainability, they're going to search sustainability ag, maybe Farm Bureau. That's the goal too. When they search Farm Bureau ag sustainability, and then it takes them to our buyer's guide, and which is an option for them too to think, okay, I want to get into some farming opportunities. I see sustainability, cover crops in my backyard. So how can I continue to apply that? So I think our action plan is to move forward with these stamps of approval, with these seals, with a Farm Bureau seal that approves, data transparency, continue to build on that and sustainability. And Kat, I'd love to hear what your thoughts on that are.
Yeah, I really love this action plan, and I think, like Michael said, it can start at the county level too. We could put on clinics and things that teach people sustainability, maybe do some workshops, and in those same workshops, introduce this buyer's guide like we talked about, so they can get that stamp of approval that it is sustainable. And that's the kind of stuff where they can market their own products better over time. One of you, I think it was you, mentioned that these products that you've grown sustainably, you can sell them for more money over time and make more money. They're more marketable because they're sustainable. You could say you use this AI technology on your farm. That's the kind of stuff that's really, really marketable and saves you money over time. But it might have more of an upfront cost. So those are the kind of things you can look into Farm Bureau for grant money for. They have really good resources on that you could also put into these clinics or workshops. And that kind of stuff is easy to start at a county level instead of just going straight to the state. And the county can work with the state too. So
certainly happening as you bring up the financial incentives that sustainability can have. And I think, again, we've all acknowledged that financially sustainability can be a burden from the get-go. But I think, as you talk about that seal of approval.
Time has been called. Please prepare your closing statements, your 1 minute closing statement. I ask the audience remain silent for 1 minute to aid the competitors in their preparation. Okay, stop and put your pins down. You volunteer at work, please stand and give your 1 minute closing statement directed to the audience.
Well, I think, again, as I started out with, agriculture is such a sustainable practice, and it was so inspiring to hear how we can make such a sustainable practice even more sustainable today. Catherine, I love how you brought up, what farmers are doing and ensuring that we know that every farmer can still use cover crops and regenerative agriculture, no-till, and ensuring that Farm Bureau is still communicating that, those basic sustainable practices out. Newt, I absolutely love your farm passport idea, where we can market sustainable agriculture, as an agritourism event. And Andy, I love how you talked about climate smart commodities and showing that we're attacking sustainability on that front as well. And I think as we kind of bring it all together, I think Farm Bureau has an amazing opportunity to serve as a financial incentive, be it through marketing or be it through lobbying in Atlanta, as well as education for more sustainable agriculture.
Any piece of mail needs a stamp for it to go anywhere. And I believe in our conversation today, we have written the letter that is ready to go forward. And what does that stamp look like for us? I think that stamp consists of communication effort, like we talked about, Catherine, with regenerative agriculture and a video series produced. Now, I believe our Farm Bureau stamp looks like what New brought up with the data transparency, and how do we include that with farmers? And then, Michael, I think our stamp includes the This Farm Cares programs. And how does Farm Bureau bring all these together? It's a stamp of approval. We approve to our farmers. Let's have a stamp of sustainability. I believe with our conversation today that we wrote the letter. So now it's time to put it in the mail.
I think our group did a good job kind of wading through the breadth of the issue that is ag and sustainability. But what I kept hearing over and over, to boil it down, is communication, communication, communication. Whether that be communicating, using Farm Bureau to communicate with our producers on trustworthy sources for precision ag technology or carbon credits or cover crops and other sustainable practices, or whether it's finding ways to communicate our story in more creative ways, like through the This Farm Cares program, passport program, or just ramping up our marketing efforts to demonstrate the good work that we already are doing. But I think we came up with a lot of good first steps in this group, and I appreciate y'all's time.
Yeah. I just thank you guys for such a good discussion today. Michael, I really like how you focused on the county, but you also talked about the higher level technologies like the AI. Andy, I really liked your buyer's guide and action plan idea, and I really appreciate that you mentioned the video series that's already on the Federation of America side. And then Newt, I really like that you're bringing the facts and the statistics about these things. Your stuff about HOA was great, and your focus on transparency. I think overall we need to focus a lot on marketing and advocacy, and I think Farm Bureau is already doing a great job of that, and we need to just continue moving in the right direction.
Let's show these competitors our appreciation for the job.